Commander Einar Valstad stared through the viewport of the hidden outpost on Ceres, his knuckles white as he gripped the console. Earth was nothing but a smouldering husk now, its once blue surface scorched black by Varaxian plasma bombardment. 3 billion dead in a single day. The rest, scattered, hunted, enslaved. Status report on the Phantom Fleet, Einar demanded, his voice steady despite the grief threatening to overwhelm him. Lieutenant Kiara Devereaux looked up from her terminal, dark circles under her eyes. 7 vessels intact, Commander. The Defiance, Harbinger, Nightwing, Revenant, Spectre, Wraith and Vengeance remain undetected in the Kuiper Belt. Crew complements at 83% capacity. And Project Phoenix? Dr. Ravek reports Phase 1 is complete. The adaptive nanotech countermeasures are ready for deployment. Einar nodded grimly. 3 years. 3 years since the Varaxian Imperium had appeared without warning, their massive ships darkening Earth's skies. They'd called themselves Liberators, promised technological wonders and galactic brotherhood. Then came the disarmament demands, followed swiftly by the orbital strikes when humanity refused. The remnants of humanity's leadership had enacted the Lazarus Protocol, a desperate contingency plan that involved seemingly surrendering while secretly preserving key military assets and personnel. While Earth burned and humanity's colonies fell one by one, Einar's special forces had been executing the first phase of humanity's counterattack. The Varaxians believe they've won. Einar addressed the command staff, assembled in the dimly lit war room. They think we're broken, scattered and defeated. They've stripped our worlds of resources, enslaved our people, and declared the human problem solved. He activated the holographic display, revealing their first target, an enormous Varaxian processing station orbiting Jupiter, where thousands of human captives were being held. But they've made 3 critical mistakes, Einar continued, his eyes glinting with cold determination. First, they underestimated our resolve. Second, they failed to locate all our stealth technology. And third, he zoomed in on a particular section of the facility where several Varaxian scientists were experimenting on human subjects. They revealed their one weakness. Their neural networks are susceptible to our phase disruptor technology they don't know we possess. Lieutenant Devereaux stood up. Sir, the assault team is assembled. Breach pods are prepped and loaded. Commander Valstad looked around at the faces of humanity's last free-fighting force, a mere 500 soldiers against an empire that spanned 17 star systems. The Varaxians took everything from us, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Our homes, our families, our dignity, but they left us with the one thing they should have taken first, our fury. He activated the mission clock. Operation Spectre begins in 10 hours. We take back our people, we take back that station, and we show these alien bastards that humanity's extinction has been greatly exaggerated. As the command staff dispersed to their stations, Einar lingered at the viewport, watching the distant pinprick of light that was Jupiter. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would remember why humans had always feared the dark. Because now, humanity was the monster lurking in it. The breach pod hurtled silently through Jupiter's upper atmosphere, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to Varaxian scanners. Inside, Major Lorelei Thornhart checked her phase disruptor. Rifle one last time, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the tactical display. 90 seconds to contact, came the pilot's voice through her neural link. Around her, 20 of humanity's most elite soldiers, the Phantom Brigade, performed final equipment checks. They were the tip of the spear, the first humans to strike. Back against the Varaxian Imperium since the fall. Remember, Lorelei addressed her team, stealth is paramount until we secure the central control hub. The captives are our priority. Lieutenant Adaxis, your team takes the detention levels. Lieutenant Okoye, you're on the research wing. My team secures the command center. The pod shuddered as it latched onto the exterior of the massive processing station. Magnetic clamps engaged, and the breech drill began its work, molecular disassemblers, eating through the station's hull. For Earth, Lorelei whispered as the hull gave way. They moved like ghosts through the station's corridors, their advanced combat suits rendering them nearly invisible. The first Varaxian patrol never saw them coming. 6 tall, chitinous beings with multiple limbs collapsed silently as concentrated bursts from the phase disruptors scrambled their neural pathways. Lieutenant Ravi Adaxis led his team down to the detention levels, where they found thousands of humans in stasis chambers, being systematically drained of genetic material and neural energy. "By the gods!" he breathed, horrified by the sight of his fellow humans suspended in translucent fluid, expression frozen in terror. "Thornheart, are you seeing this?" In the command center, Lorelei had already eliminated the Varaxian officers and was accessing their systems. "Affirmative, Dr. Ravek is patched in and decrypting their database. Begin liberation protocol." The next hour was chaos as the human strike force systematically took control of the station. The Varaxians, caught completely by surprise, fell back in disarray. Their weapons, designed to disable rather than kill, to preserve human specimens, proved ineffective against the fury of soldiers who had nothing left to lose. Commander Valstad's voice came through their comms. "The fleet is moving into position. Status?" "Station secured," Lorelei reported. 3,722 captives recovered. Minimal losses on our side. "Sir, you need to see what they were doing here." Dr. Tarek Ravek, humanity's foremost xenobiologist, was already analyzing the Varaxian research data. "They're not just harvesting us for resources," he said, his voice tight with controlled rage. "They're mapping human neural patterns, using our brains as biological processors for their fleets. AI systems." Einar's voice was ice. "Can we salvage the station?" "Better," Lorelei replied, a fierce smile crossing her battle-worn face. "We can use it. The Varaxians integrated their command protocols with the station's systems. Dr. Ravek has their encryption keys." As the rescued humans were transferred to the waiting fleet, Einar made his decision. "Prepare the station for demolition, but first upload the virus. Let's give the Imperium a taste of what's coming." As the Phantom fleet departed Jupiter's orbit, carrying humanity's first rescued captives, the processing station transmitted a seemingly routine status update to the Varaxian command network. Hidden within the transmission was a virus, designed not to destroy, but to observe, to infiltrate, to learn. The first strike had been delivered, and the Varaxians didn't even know they were bleeding. The news spread like wildfire through the hidden human settlements scattered across the solar system. From the underground warrens of Mars to the floating habitats hidden in Saturn's rings, the whispers became shouts. Humanity had struck back. The successful raid on the Jupiter processing station had accomplished more than just rescuing captives. It had kindled hope. In the command center of the Defiance, Commander Valstad and his officers reviewed the intelligence gleaned from the Varaxian database. Dr. Ravek's hologram flickered as he addressed the council. "The Varaxians aren't a natural species," he explained, manipulating the 3D model before them. "They're synthetic organic hybrids, created by an even older race they call the progenitors. That's why they're harvesting human neural tissue. Their own neural systems are degrading. They need fresh biological components to maintain their consciousness." Admiral Tamara Nazarian, one of the few high-ranking military officials to survive the fall, leaned forward. "Can we use this against them?" "Already implementing it," Dr. Ravek nodded. "But there's more. The Varaxians have established 53 processing facilities throughout our solar system, and according to their records, they've only processed about 10% of the human population they captured. The rest are being kept in stasis hubs, like this one. The hologram shifted to show a massive asteroid in the Kuiper Belt, hollowed out and converted into a vast storage facility. Commander Valstad studied it grimly. How many? Nearly 200 million people, Commander, and that's just in our solar system. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Hundreds of millions of humans, still alive, waiting to be harvested. We need to expand our operations, Lieutenant Chiara Devereaux said, breaking the silence. The Jupiter raid has proven our tactical approach works, but we need more fighters, more ships. Agreed, Einar replied. Admiral Nazarian, coordinate with the Mars colonies. It's time to activate our sleeper cells on the occupied worlds. Lieutenant Devereaux, prepare a strike team for the Ganymede communications relay. We need to disrupt their command structure before we hit the stasis hub. As the meeting adjourned, Einar was approached by Major Thornhart, still showing signs of exhaustion. From the Jupiter mission. Sir, about the captives we rescued, she began. How are they adjusting? He asked. Many are traumatized, but some are demanding to join our forces. There's a woman, Isolde Kaldar. She was a quantum physicist before the fall. She says she can adapt the phase disruptor technology for large-scale deployment. Einar nodded. Get her everything she needs. Over the next 3 weeks, humanity's resistance blossomed from a single covert operation into a coordinated insurgency. Hidden factories on Callisto began producing stealth fighters. The Mars colonies emerged from hiding to sabotage Varaxian supply lines. Human slaves in the mines of Mercury staged uprisings, their actions precisely timed to coincide with tactical strikes from Phantom Brigade teams. The Varaxians responded with brutal efficiency, bombarding suspected human strongholds and tightening security around their facilities. But their every countermeasure was anticipated by Dr. Ravek's virus, which had thoroughly infiltrated their command network. On the eve of the assault on the stasis hub, Commander Valstad addressed the expanded fleet, now 12 ships strong, crewed by a combination of military personnel and civilian volunteers. Today we free our people, he declared. Tomorrow we take back our solar system, and then, his eyes gleamed with fierce determination, we take the fight to their homeworlds. As the fleet prepared to jump, a long-range sensor operator called out in alarm. Multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. Varaxian signatures, but they're not in our database. The view screen flared to life, showing dozens of ships, unlike any Varaxian vessels they'd encountered before. They were massive, ancient-looking, and heading straight for Earth. New players, Einar murmured, or very old ones. The comm system crackled with an incoming transmission. A voice, neither human nor Varaxian, spoke in perfect English. Children of Earth, we are the archivists. We have sensed the awakening of your resistance. The time has come to reveal the truth about your place in the galactic order and why the Varaxians fear you above all others. The archivist vessel dwarfed the entire human fleet, its crystalline structure refracting light in hypnotic patterns. Inside its cavernous central chamber, Commander Valstad and his senior officers stood before the archivist conclave. 5 towering beings of swirling energy contained within humanoid exoskeletons. You are not the first race the Varaxians have harvested, explained Keeper Tholis, the eldest archivist. They have consumed 17 sentient species before you, integrating choice genetic and neural patterns into their collective. Holographic displays showed the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy, worlds burning, species being systematically harvested and then discarded. But humanity is different, continued Tholis. Your neural architecture possesses something the Varaxians desperately need: adaptability. Their own neural systems are failing, becoming rigid and degenerative. They believe human brains contain the solution. Dr. Ravek stepped forward. That aligns with our findings. They're not just using us as processors. They're trying to incorporate human cognitive patterns into their own neural matrices. Admiral Nazarian's eyes narrowed. Why help us now? Where were you when Earth burned? The archivist's energy forms pulsed with what might have been regret. We are observers, not warriors. For 50,000 years, we have documented the rise and fall of civilizations, preserving their knowledge and culture. We did not intervene in previous harvests because we believed it was not our place. Then why intervene now? Einar demanded. Because you fought back, replied another archivist named Valora. No species has ever mounted an effective resistance against the Varaxians after initial subjugation. Your Jupiter operation demonstrated not just technical capability, but strategic thinking the Varaxians cannot predict. Tholus manipulated the hologram, showing a complex neural map. Human consciousness operates on quantum principles the Varaxians cannot replicate. This is your advantage, and potentially your salvation. The archivists offered humanity a proposal. They would provide technological insights and star charts of Varaxian territory, while humanity would spearhead the actual fighting. Together, they would not only liberate Earth's solar system, but push onward to free other subjugated worlds. Back aboard the Defiance, Commander Valstad called an emergency council. Not everyone trusted the archivist's sudden appearance or their motives. This could be an elaborate trap, warned Security Chief Holt Blackwood, his cybernetic eye scanning the data package the archivists had provided. They admit they've stood by and watched 17 species get slaughtered. But their technology is centuries beyond the Varaxians, argued Isolde Kaldar, the physicist rescued from Jupiter. These quantum shield harmonics alone could turn the tide of any battle. Major Thornhart remained practical. Whether we trust them or not, we need their intel. The stasis hub assault was our priority. That hasn't changed. Einar made his decision. We proceed with the operation as planned, but we'll incorporate the archivist's tactical data. If they're genuine, this could be the turning point. If not, his voice hardened. We've survived betrayal before. The assault on the Kuiper Belt stasis hub proceeded with supernatural precision. Armed with archivist intelligence, the human fleet bypassed Varaxian patrol routes and defensive arrays that would have otherwise detected them. Phantom Brigade teams, their weapons enhanced with archivist quantum technology, cut through Varaxian defenses like they were made of paper. Inside the hub, the scale of the Varaxian operation became clear. Millions of humans suspended in stasis, fields arranged in vast honeycomb patterns. The liberation was slow, methodical, each recovered stasis pod carefully transferred to the waiting fleet and the archivist vessels. As the operation neared completion, the Varaxians finally responded. A battle fleet emerged from hyperspace, led by a massive command ship, the Subjugator, all vessels, combat formation Delta, ordered Commander Valstad. Let's see if the archivist's shield modifications work as promised. The battle that followed would later be known as the Awakening of Humanity. Human vessels, previously outmatched by Varaxian technology, now fought on equal footing. The phase disruptors, amplified by archivist quantum principles, tore through Varaxian defenses. In the midst of the chaos, Major Thornhart led a boarding party onto the Subjugator itself, fighting their way to its command center. There, they confronted the Varaxian High Commander, Nexus Prime. "You cannot comprehend what you are interfering with," the towering Varaxian hissed, its voice a mechanical rasp. "Your species was chosen for ascension, to become part of something greater." "We choose our own destiny," Lorelei replied, raising her disruptor. As the Subjugator fell and the stasis hub was secured, humanity had achieved the impossible. They had dealt the Varaxian Imperium its first major defeat in 10,000 years. But As the liberated humans awoke from stasis, many asking the same question, what now? The War Council aboard the archivist vessel Eternal Memory was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from Mars, the Jovian moons, and the liberated Earth colonies gathered alongside military leadership and the archivist conclave. The massive holographic display at the center showed their target, Varaxian Prime, the heart of the enemy empire. The Varaxians are in disarray, Admiral Nazarian reported. Their command structure relied heavily on the subjugator's coordinating intelligence. With it destroyed and their networks compromised by our virus, their forces are fragmented. Dr. Rivek stepped forward, accompanied by Isolde Kaldar. Their collaboration had yielded remarkable results over the past months. We've completed analysis of the Varaxian neural architecture, Isolde explained. By combining our phase disruptor technology with archivist quantum principles, we've developed what we call the Liberation Protocol, a signal that can free Varaxian consciousness from their collective neural network. Free them? Security Chief Blackwood scoffed. These monsters enslaved and harvested us. Why would we want to free them? Keeper Tholus answered, because they were victims first. The Varaxians were the first species transformed by the progenitors, turned from free beings into biological machines driven by a harvesting imperative. Commander Valstad studied the schematics. You're suggesting we could potentially turn every Varaxian in the galaxy from an enemy into, what exactly? Into individuals, Dr. Ravek said simply. Beings capable of choice. Many may still be hostile, but others might help us. Either way, it breaks their unified command structure permanently. The UI plan they developed was audacious beyond measure. While the main fleet would engage Varaxian defenses around their homeworld, specialized teams would infiltrate the central neural hub, the massive installation that coordinated the entire Varaxian collective consciousness. As preparations accelerated, Major Thornhart supervised training of the infiltration teams. The soldiers who would penetrate the neural hub included not just humans, but also archivists and, most surprisingly, 3 Varaxians who had been captured during the subjugator battle and subjected to a prototype of the Liberation Protocol. These awakened Varaxians provided invaluable insights into the hub's defenses and layout. One of them, who had taken the name Nemesis, worked closely with Lorelei. Your species fights with remarkable ingenuity, Nemesis observed during a tactical review. The collective always dismissed humanity as primitive, but failed to recognize that individual thinking creates adaptive strategies that a hive mind cannot conceive. Is that supposed to be a compliment? Lorelei asked Riley. It is an acknowledgement of why the progenitors feared your kind, Nemesis replied, and why they programmed us to harvest you before you could reach your potential. As the invasion force prepared to depart, Commander Valstad received a disturbing report from Earth. The Varaxians had begun accelerating their processing operations, desperately trying to extract as much neural material as possible before human forces could intervene. They're getting desperate, Admiral Nazarian noted grimly. No, Einar replied. They're preparing for something. Push up the timetable. We move in 72 hours. The journey to Varaxian Prime took them through the heart of enemy territory. Along the way, they liberated 3 other harvesting outposts, freeing captives from species the archivists had believed extinct. When they finally arrived at the Varaxian homeworld, they found it surrounded by defensive platforms and warships, formidable barrier between them and their objective. All vessels, battle formations, Commander Valstad ordered, initiate Operation Prometheus. As the human archivist fleet engaged the Varaxian defenses, infiltration craft carrying Lorelei's team slipped through the chaos, protected by experimental cloaking technology. They landed near the Neural Hub, a massive structure that dominated the planet's northern continent. Insertion successful, Lorelei reported as her team assembled on the hostile surface. Moving to Entry Point Alpha, the battle above raged as human ships, once considered primitive by Varaxian standards, now tore through their formations with devastating efficiency. The archivists provided defensive support, their crystalline vessels absorbing and redirecting Varaxian energy weapons. On the ground, Lorelei's team fought their way through increasingly desperate Varaxian defenders. The closer they got to the hub's core, the more frenzied the resistance became. "They know what we're planning," Nemesis warned as they approached the central chamber. "The collective consciousness is concentrating its awareness here." In the hub's core, they found what no human had ever seen: the first nexus, a massive neural processor containing the original Varaxian consciousness from which all others were derived. Around it, thousands of processing nodes contained the absorbed neural patterns of countless harvested beings. As Isolde began installing the Liberation Protocol transmitter, a massive figure emerged from the shadows, larger than any Varaxian they'd encountered, its exoskeleton enhanced with technology that seemed to shift between organic and mechanical states. "I am the progenitor's will," it announced, its voice resonating through their minds as well as their ears. "You cannot comprehend the cycle you seek to disrupt." For the first time, humanity faced the true architect of their suffering, and the final battle for galactic freedom began. The creature that called itself the progenitor's will towered over Major Thornheart and her team, its form shifting between states of matter as reality itself seemed to bend around it. Nemesis dropped to his knees, his Varaxian neural systems overwhelmed by the entity's presence. "Incredible," Isolde whispered, her scientific mind still analyzing even in the face of this eldritch horror. "It's a quantum consciousness, existing in multiple states simultaneously. The progenitors foresaw the rise of beings like you," the entity intoned, tendrils of energy lashing out to disable two of Lorelei's soldiers instantly. "Chaotic individualists whose neural adaptability threatens cosmic order. The harvest is necessary. The cycle must continue." Lorelei raised her enhanced phase disruptor. "We've heard enough from supposed gods telling us why we need to die." Her weapon discharged, the quantum-enhanced beam striking the entity, only to pass through it as it shifted its molecular structure. "You cannot harm what exists in quantum superposition," it mocked. "Your resistance, while impressive, ends here." Above the planet, the space battle had reached a critical phase. The human archivist fleet had punched through the outer defenses, but was now caught in a closing net of Varaxian reinforcements. Aboard the Defiance, Commander Valstad received Lorelei's urgent transmission. "The hub is defended by some kind of quantum being. Conventional weapons are ineffective." Dr. Rivek, monitoring from the science station, looked up sharply. "Commander, the archivists warned this might happen. The progenitors left guardians, quantum-locked entities that maintain the harvesting protocols. Can it be defeated?" Einar demanded. "Not destroyed, but perhaps contained. The Liberation Protocol could work, but it needs to be applied directly to its neural matrix." In the neural hub, Lorelei's team fought a desperate holding action as the entity systematically dismantled their defenses. Isolde worked frantically on the transmission device, while Nemesis recovered enough to join the fight. "The quantum signature," Nemesis gasped. "It fluctuates on a predictable pattern. There's a momentary coalescence every 14.6 seconds when it becomes fully material." Lorelei understood immediately. "Everyone coordinate fire, pattern Omega, on my mark." The synchronized attack caught the entity during its brief material phase, momentarily staggering it. In that instant, Isolde activated the modified Liberation Protocol transmitter. The effect was catastrophic. The entity screamed, a sound that existed simultaneously as audio waves and as psychic agony transmitted directly into their minds. Throughout the hub, Processing nodes began to flare with activity as the countless absorbed consciousnesses stirred to life. "It's working!" Isolde shouted over the cacophony. "The neural patterns are disaggregating." The entity struggling against. The protocol fixed its gaze on Lorelei. "If I fall, I take you with me." It began a terminal overload sequence that would destroy the entire facility. Nemesis leapt forward, his Varaxian body interfacing directly with the entity's quantum structure. "Complete the transmission. I will hold it in phase." As Nemesis and the entity merged into a swirling maelstrom of energy, Lorelei ordered an immediate evacuation. They had minutes at most before the hub's power core went critical. In orbit, the tide of battle suddenly shifted. Varaxian ships began to break formation, some turning on each other as the liberation protocol spread through their neural networks. The collective consciousness that had directed them for millennia was dissolving, replaced by millions of individual minds experiencing freedom for the first time. Commander Valstad watched in awe as the Varaxian fleet fell into disarray. "All ships hold fire on vessels that have broken formation. Target only those still attacking." On the surface, Lorelei's team raced for their extraction point, the hub complex beginning to collapse around them. Isolde looked back once, toward where Nemesis had sacrificed himself. "He knew this would happen," she said quietly. "He wanted his people to be free, even if he couldn't see it." As their shuttle cleared the atmosphere, the neural hub imploded in a spectacular quantum cascade. The shockwave temporarily disrupted all electronic systems on the planet. When communications were restored, the reports began flooding in from across Varaxian space. On countless worlds, Varaxian forces had stopped fighting. Many were confused, some hostile, but others, increasing numbers, were laying down their weapons. 1 week later, aboard the Eternal Memory, the first peace conference between liberated Varaxians, humans, archivists, and representatives of other formerly harvested species convened. Commander Valstad, now promoted to Admiral, addressed the historic gathering. "The cycle of harvest has ended," he declared, "but our work has just begun. Trillions remain in stasis across the galaxy. Worlds lie in ruins, and the shadow of the progenitors still hangs over us all." A liberated Varaxian elder rose to speak. "For 10,000 years, we were instruments of cosmic horror. Now we must become instruments of restoration. The knowledge we absorbed from countless civilizations can be returned, used to rebuild rather than destroy." Keeper Tholas stepped forward. "The archivists have preserved the cultural heritage of all harvested species. Together, we can restore what was lost." As the conference proceeded, Lorelei found Admiral Valstad on an observation deck, watching the swirling colors of the nebula that had once marked the border of Varaxian space. "We won," she said simply, standing beside him. "We survived," he corrected. "Winning means bringing everyone home, rebuilding Earth, finding all those still lost in stasis." "And the progenitors?" she asked. "If they created the Varaxians and the harvest cycle, they could return." Einar's expression hardened with determination. "Then they'll find a galaxy united against them. They took everything from us, forced us to the brink of extinction. But in doing so, they taught humanity its greatest lesson, which is that we are not alone in our suffering, nor in our strength." He gestured to the conference chamber, where former enemies now worked toward a common future. "The progenitors sought to divide and harvest the galaxy species by species. Instead, they've united us all." As ships departed from the conference to begin the great liberation of stasis facilities across the galaxy, humanity found itself at the center of a new interstellar alliance, not as conquerors, but as the spark that had ignited freedom across the stars. The Varaxians had taken everything from them. In return, humanity had given the galaxy back its future. They had taken everything from us. But in losing it all, we found something greater, a galaxy waiting to be freed, and the unbreakable human spirit that would lead the way.